5 years after our divorce, Grant looked me straight in the eyes and said walking away from our marriage was the smartest decision of his life. 10 seconds later, his own daughter ran across a wedding dance floor and threw her arms around another man's leg, screaming the word daddy loud enough for the whole reception to hear. His face went white, because in that instant he finally understood exactly what he had thrown away. My name is Claire, and this story starts in a modest little house outside Columbus, Ohio, where Grant and I built an ordinary, happy life together. It did not stay that way. His hours at work grew longer, his phone never left his hand, and small, cruel comments slipped into everyday conversation. Around that same time, my closest friend Renee became my biggest comfort, showing up with soup and soft words, telling me I deserved better. I never once suspected she was the reason my marriage was falling apart. One rainy night, I found a hotel receipt in his jacket pocket, dated the exact weekend he claimed to be away at a conference. Headlights swept the driveway before I could even confront him, and Renee walked through my front door with tears already in her eyes. Grant looked at me and said he had not been happy in years, as if that erased everything. I asked how long it had been going on. Long enough, was all Renee said. Then Grant told me he wanted a divorce. 2 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant, at 41 years old, after doctors had told us for years it might never happen. I met Grant at a Panera to tell him. He barely glanced at the ultrasound, leaned back, and asked if I thought a baby would make him stay. I told him this was his child. He said one word, so when I asked if he even wanted to know the gender, he stood up, said he did not care, and walked out without looking back. He signed every divorce paper without ever asking for a paternity test. My daughter Chloe was born 4 months later. Grant never called, never sent flowers, never asked her name. For a year, my whole world shrank to our tiny house, the pediatrician, and exhausted nights grading papers after she fell asleep. Then a man named Ethan, someone I had barely spoken to years earlier, kept quietly showing up. He followed me home in the snow to make sure I was safe. He sat in an uncomfortable chair outside the delivery room for 11 hours, not because anyone asked him to, but because he could not imagine being anywhere else. He never tried to rescue me. He simply stayed. When Chloe reached her arms toward him and called him Dada for the first time, I found him crying quietly in the kitchen, terrified he was replacing a father who was never actually there. He was not replacing anyone. He was becoming exactly who she already believed him to be. 2 years later, sitting on a park blanket while Chloe chased squirrels, Ethan asked me to marry him, and I said yes before he even finished the question. 4 years after that, we ended up back at my cousin's wedding, the same event where Grant told me leaving me was his smartest decision. Chloe ran straight past him and into Ethan's arms, calling him Daddy. Grant stared at her eyes, her smile, the dimple that matched his own, and asked how old she was. 4, I told him. 4 years and 3 months. I watched him silently count backward through the wedding, the affair, the ultrasound he refused to touch, and it all landed on him at once. He tried to force his way back into her life after that. He showed up to her birthday party uninvited, pushing an expensive toy car, shouting that he was her father in front of every guest. I pulled out the papers I had kept for years, his own signature on the adoption consent, proof he had known about the pregnancy, and signed everything away himself. I told him plainly that being her biological father explained where she came from. It did not explain where he had been. A year later, Renee finally left him, telling him he did not miss me. He missed the family he threw away with his own hands. Grant stayed behind in a big, silent, beautifully remodeled house that he later admitted felt completely unbearable to live inside. Today, Chloe knows Grant is her biological father. She also knows love is not measured by blood. It is measured by who actually stays. She still calls Ethan Daddy, not because anyone taught her to, but because that is who he has always been. People ask if I ever got my revenge. I just smile, because the real justice was never about watching his marriage collapse. It was watching my daughter grow up wrapped in exactly the kind of love I once thought I would never find again.